continue following the latest out of the criminal hush money trial involving former President Donald Trump in Lower Manhattan. Today, the judge in the case held Trump in contempt of court for violating a gag order multiple times. Judge Juan Merchan said Trump violated the order 9 times and fined him with $1,000 each for each violation, so a total of $9 grand. Our Errol Barnett is at the courthouse in Manhattan alongside CBS News national correspondent Jerika Duncan. Errol, Jerika, great to have you.
Hey, Lilia, that's right. Jerika is here with me, but let me give you a quick summary on that penalty that Judge Juan Merchan ordered to Donald Trump. $9,000 for 9 violations of the gag order and a warning that any continued violations would end up with some type of incarceration for Trump. And Thursday, the judge will hold a hearing on 4 additional...
Okay, so picture this. You're sitting in a federal courtroom. The judge is laying down the law. And then out of nowhere, the president of the United States stands up, starts yelling at the judge, refuses to sit down, and gets physically escorted out by security. And yeah, this actually happened. This is not a movie. This is not some hypothetical scenario. This went down in real courtroom proceedings, and the whole thing got captured on video and went absolutely viral. I mean, we're talking about footage that's spreading across every platform. People are sharing it. People are talking about it. And honestly, when you watch it, you can't believe what you're seeing. The sitting president losing his composure in a federal courtroom so badly that security has to physically remove him. That's not normal. That's not something you see every day. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Gag order violations that the prosecution says he has made. So a significant morning already. CBS Weekend News anchor and national correspondent Jerika Duncan, you've been inside the courthouse. You were close to the former president this morning as he was making remarks. What jumped out at you?
You know, it was very typical of what he had to say about this process being flawed. He called for the judge to recuse himself today, in fact, saying that legal scholars feel as though this case merits no real warrant or is going to be effective. So more of the same. But again, he's talked for about 6 or 7 minutes just talking about how everything is a sham, it's a hoax, and that what we're hearing is not true.
It's interesting also because we have not heard from Donald Trump is specific criticisms of witnesses and specific criticisms of the judge. He's now being hit with these penalties. But meantime, the jury is hearing...
On November 16th, 2025, something happened that we're honestly still processing. Trump walked into a hearing expecting one thing and instead got hit with sanctions, got thrown out of his own trial, and handed Democrats the kind of viral moment they've been dreaming about for months. Come on, this is wild stuff. We're talking about the sitting president losing his composure so badly that security had to physically remove him from the courtroom, and his lawyers, they got sanctioned. His legal team got hit with financial penalties. The whole thing turned into what the judge literally called a circus. Think about that for a second. The judge didn't say Trump was wrong on the law. The judge didn't say Trump had a point. The judge said the proceedings turned into a circus. That's the kind of language you use when things have completely fallen apart. So here's what went down, and honestly, the details matter because this wasn't just some random outburst. The judge had made a major ruling that wasn't going Trump's way, and instead of letting his lawyers handle it, instead of staying cool and collected like you'd expect a president to act in court, Trump lost it. He started screaming. He interrupted the judge mid-sentence. The judge ordered him to sit down. Trump refused. And then court security and Secret Service officers literally had to remove him from the room. You can see it on video. You can watch it happen. The security walking up, Trump being escorted out, the judge just sitting there watching the whole thing unfold. Is absolutely wild. Now, here's why this matters right now. We're in the middle of shutdown drama. Midterm buildup is starting. Democrats are already running ads. Prosecutors are framing this moment as a massive turning point. They're saying this proves Trump is unfit. They're using it as evidence of his temperament, his judgment, his ability to actually function as president. And the worst part for Trump, the whole thing is on video. It's on social media. It's everywhere. This isn't some he said, she said situation. This is documented proof of a presidential meltdown in a courtroom. And once something becomes documented like that, it's permanent. It's out there forever. Politicians are going to use that footage. News outlets are going to show that footage. That moment is going to be replayed thousands of times. And think about the optics here. The president is supposed to be presidential, right? He's supposed to project strength and stability. But instead, we're seeing someone who can't control his emotions in a high-stakes legal situation. We're seeing someone who's willing to blow up his own trial just because he didn't like what the judge was saying. That's not strength, that's chaos. And this isn't even his first rodeo with courtroom blowups. This echoes what happened in his fraud trial when he stormed out. This is a pattern. And when behavior repeats like that, people start noticing it. People start thinking, okay, this isn't just a one-time thing. This is who this person actually is. The judge's response was swift and brutal. The judge basically said, you failed to control your client and you've turned these proceedings into a circus, sanctioning his legal team, imposing financial penalties, adding new restrictions on what Trump and his team can do going forward. So Trump walked into that courtroom thinking he was going to dominate the hearing, and instead, he walked out sanctioned, removed, and handing his opposition exactly what they needed. He gave them the evidence they wanted directly from his own behavior in the courtroom. Here's the thing that really gets interesting though. This whole situation ties into bigger stuff happening right now. There's the asset freeze situation. There's Jack Smith evidence getting handed over. There's obstruction claims getting revived. Epstein documents are getting unsealed. There's impeachment talk happening on Capitol Hill. This isn't just about one hearing. This is about a whole constellation of legal and political pressure coming down at once. And Trump's response to that pressure, he blew up in a courtroom and got removed. That's not exactly a winning strategy. That's how you make things worse for yourself. And look, the timing is terrible for Trump. We're heading into the shutdown debate. We've got budget stuff to deal with. We've got midterm positioning already starting. And instead of controlling the narrative, Trump's giving Democrats this incredible viral moment, showing him losing control. It's the kind of thing that gets replayed over and over. It's the kind of thing that becomes a symbol of something bigger. And prosecutors are definitely going to use it. They're going to say, look, this shows you exactly who this person is. This shows you his fitness for office. This shows you his judgment. So that's what happened on November 16th. And we're going to break down exactly what led to this, what's going to happen next, and why this moment might actually shift how people are thinking about Trump's legal situation right now. This is the kind of story that changes things. This is the kind of moment that people remember. All right, so let's actually understand what was happening in that courtroom. And I know that sounds boring. I know that sounds like legal minutia that nobody cares about. But actually, the context is everything here. Because Trump didn't just randomly blow up. There were triggers. There was stuff that set this off. And understanding that context helps explain why this moment is such a big deal and why prosecutors came out of that hearing saying it was a major turning point. So we're talking about a November 16th hearing on evidence and sanctions. That's already serious stuff, right? When you're having a hearing on sanctions, that means the court is considering punishing one side for misconduct. That means there are allegations that somebody broke the rules. That means there are consequences on the table. And for Trump's legal team, they knew this was going to be a rough day. They knew the judge wasn't happy with them. They knew there were issues with how they've been conducting themselves in this case. They probably went into that hearing trying to minimize the damage and convince the judge that things weren't as bad as they seemed. The judge had made a major ruling right before Trump lost it. And this ruling wasn't going Trump's way. Like, this was a significant order. This was something that shifted the entire case dramatically. And that's what triggered the explosion. Trump heard that ruling. He understood what it meant for his legal situation. And he just snapped. He stood up. He started raising his voice. He interrupted the judge mid-sentence. Come on, this is the kind of thing that gets you removed from court. This is exactly why judges have the power to maintain order. Courts depend on people following the rules. Courts depend on people respecting the judge's authority. And when someone, especially the president, refuses to do that, the judge has to act. The judge told him to sit down, Mr. Trump, and Trump refused. He refused to sit down. He kept going. He kept arguing. He kept being disruptive. And at that point, the judge is like, okay, we're done. You're out. This is over. Court security and Secret Service stepped in. They physically escorted him out of the courtroom. Can you imagine being a judge and having to order the president of the United States to be removed from your courtroom? But the judge did it. The judge enforced the rules. The judge said, no, even you, even the sitting president are not above the rules of this court. And that's when the judge turned on Trump's lawyers. That's when the sanctioning happened. The judge said, you failed to control your client and you've turned these proceedings into a circus. So now the lawyers are getting hit, they're getting sanctioned, they're facing financial penalties, they're getting new restrictions placed on them about how they can operate in this case going forward. So Trump's outburst didn't just affect Trump, it affected his entire legal team. It made their jobs harder, it made their situation worse. And that's actually a huge deal because now Trump's own lawyers are probably frustrated with him. They're dealing with consequences they didn't create. They're dealing with penalties that came directly from Trump's behavior. And that creates tension within the legal team. That creates frustration. And in a legal team, frustration and tension can lead to people not working as effectively. But here's what's really interesting about this moment. This didn't happen in a vacuum. This is happening while a bunch of other stuff is swirling around. Asset freezes are happening. Evidence is being handed over. Obstruction claims are being revived. Jack Smith's office is dealing with all kinds of pressure from House Republicans. You've got the Epstein documents potentially getting unsealed. You've got impeachment articles being talked about on Capitol Hill. There's slurring incidents. There's health concerns being raised. There's all this noise happening at once. And Trump's response is to blow up in a federal courtroom. And that just adds to the chaos. That just adds to the sense that something is wrong. That just adds to the sense that Trump can't handle the pressure he's under. And think about how this plays politically. Okay, so Democrats have been trying to push the narrative that Trump is unfit for office. They've been trying to suggest that his judgment is compromised, that he can't control himself, that he's unstable. And Trump just handed them video evidence of exactly that. He handed them a moment that perfectly encapsulates what they've been saying about him. Now prosecutors can point to that courtroom video and say, this is what we're talking about. This is the behavior. This is the instability. And it's all documented. It's all on video. It's all permanent. Nobody can argue that this didn't happen. The video shows exactly what happened. The video shows Trump losing his composure. The video shows Trump refusing to follow the judge's orders. The video shows security having to remove him from the courtroom. The prosecutors came out of that hearing calling it a major turning point. They said this changes things. They said this proves their case about Trump's character and judgment. And you know what? They're probably right, because this is the sitting president of the United States getting removed from a federal courtroom. That's not normal. That's not something that happens all the time. That's significant. That's noteworthy. And it's being used to support arguments about fitness for office. Courts are going to look at this. Judges are going to look at this. Juries are going to look at this. And they're going to think about what it means. They're going to think about what it says about Trump's character. Now, here's where a lot of people misunderstand this story. They think Trump's outburst was random. But actually, there's strategy in here somewhere, probably. Like Trump knows that his base responds to him being aggressive. Trump knows that his supporters want to see him fighting back. Trump knows that his people view him as someone who stands up to what they see as an unfair system. So his logic might be, I'll show them I'm not backing down. I'll show them I'm not intimidated by this judge. I'll show them I'm fighting. And on some level, that might play with his base. But here's the problem. The rest of the country sees that video and sees something completely different. They see instability. They see someone who can't control himself. They see someone who's willing to blow up his own case just because he's angry. And in a second-term presidency, where Trump is supposed to be governing, where he's supposed to be dealing with budget stuff and foreign policy and all the major issues facing the country, this kind of behavior is not reassuring. This is exactly the kind of thing that makes people wonder if he's actually fit to be running things. When you're the president, you're supposed to be in control. You're supposed to be calm. You're supposed to be able to handle pressure. And Trump just demonstrated on video that he can't do any of those things. And this echoes his fraud trial. Remember when Trump walked out of those hearings? Same kind of pattern, same kind of behavior. So this isn't new. This is a pattern of courtroom behavior that's been developing throughout all of these cases. And now it's culminating in the sitting president getting physically removed from a federal courtroom by security. That's not a good sign. That's not something that suggests things are going well for Trump legally. The sanctioning of his legal team is actually really significant too, because now his lawyers are dealing with consequences that directly result from Trump's behavior. They're facing financial penalties. They're dealing with new court-imposed restrictions. They're trying to represent a client who's actively making their jobs worse by his conduct. And that creates tension within the legal team. And pressure like that can lead to mistakes, can lead to strategic problems, can lead to things falling apart. When a legal team isn't working smoothly, things go downhill fast. So the immediate aftermath of this moment is crucial. Prosecutors are riding high. They're saying this proves everything they've been arguing. Viral clips are spreading everywhere. Social media is full of people reacting to this. Democrats are excited because they've got this video evidence of Trump being volatile and unstable, and Trump's own legal team is probably scrambling to figure out how to manage him going forward. How do you control a client who's the president of the United States and who's willing to blow up his own trial? That's an impossible situation to be in. Okay, so let's break this down into what actually matters. What are the real takeaways from this courtroom explosion? What are the actual consequences? And where does this go from here? Because understanding these points is crucial to understanding why this moment is such a big deal. First point, Trump got removed from a federal courtroom. That's point number one. The sitting president of the United States was physically escorted out by security because he refused to comply with the judge's orders. This is not something that happens normally. This is not something that happens to presidents. This is unprecedented in modern terms, and is significant because it sets a precedent. It shows that even the sitting president is not above courtroom decorum rules. It shows that judges will enforce their authority even against the highest office in the land. And yeah, that matters. It matters because it means the judicial system is still functioning. It means courts still have power. It means the president can't just do whatever he wants in a courtroom. Second point, his legal team got sanctioned, financial penalties, new restrictions. The judge basically said, you failed to manage your client and now you're facing consequences. So Trump's outburst had ripple effects. It affected his lawyers directly. It made their situation worse. And that creates a dynamic where his legal team might start pushing back on him, might start trying to control his behavior because they're the ones dealing with the fallout. That's significant strategically. When a client's own lawyers are frustrated with him, when they're dealing with penalties because of his behavior, that changes how they approach the case. And that's bad for Trump. Third point, this is being framed as evidence of unfitness. Prosecutors are using this moment to support their arguments that Trump lacks the judgment and temperament to be president. Democrats are using it for political messaging. The narrative is solidifying around Trump is unstable, Trump can't control himself, Trump is unfit. And the problem for Trump is that he handed them the perfect evidence of exactly that claim. He gave them video proof. And once that narrative sets in, it's hard to change. Once people see that video and think about what it means, it's hard to convince them that Trump is actually fit and stable and in control. Fourth point, this happens in the context of a bunch of other stuff. You've got asset freezes, you've got obstruction claims being revived, you've got House Republicans going after Jack Smith, you've got Epstein documents potentially being unsealed, you've got impeachment talk, there's slurring incidents being reported, there's health concerns, there's all this noise happening at once, and this courtroom explosion adds to that noise. It adds to the chaos. It adds to the sense that Trump is dealing with unprecedented legal and political pressure, and his response is to lose control in a courtroom. That's not a great look. Now let's talk about the broader picture. Why does this moment matter right now? We're heading into serious political stuff. The shutdown is looming. We're in budget season. Midterm positioning is starting. This is supposed to be a time when Trump is focused on governing, on dealing with the major issues facing the country. Instead, he's dealing with courtroom drama. He's dealing with sanctions. He's dealing with removal from proceedings. His legal problems are consuming attention and energy that should probably be going to running the government. And here's the thing about viral moments. Once they're out there, they're permanent. Someone's going to make a political ad with that courtroom footage. Someone's going to use that moment in 2026 midterm campaigns. Remember when the president got removed from court? That's a powerful image. That's a powerful moment. And it's all captured on video. That footage is going to be used against Trump. It's going to be used by Democrats. It's going to be used by media outlets. That moment is going to haunt Trump for years. The prosecutors came out of this hearing saying it's a major turning point. They said this changes the trajectory of the case. And yeah, probably because now they've got documented evidence of Trump's temperament and behavior that they can use. They can point to that video and say, this is who we're dealing with. This is the behavior we're trying to prove matters. And judges and juries tend to be influenced by real evidence of how someone actually behaves. So this courtroom moment might actually shift how people perceive the entire case. It might change how jurors think about Trump. It might change how judges view his credibility. And think about the contrast here. Trump came into office talking about restoring law and order. He came into office talking about respect for the courts and the judicial system. And then his first major courtroom appearance as president involves him getting removed by security for refusing to comply with the judge's orders. That's a pretty brutal irony. That's exactly the kind of thing that undermines his messaging. You can't stand up and talk about law and order while simultaneously breaking the rules and refusing to respect judicial authority. Now, what happens next? Well, we're probably going to see more restrictions on Trump's involvement in these proceedings. We're probably going to see his legal team trying to keep him away from courtrooms because his presence is becoming a liability. We're probably going to see continued pressure from prosecutors who are now feeling emboldened by this moment. And we're definitely going to see political fallout as this moment gets weaponized in the midterm narrative. The sanctioning of his legal team means they're facing new constraints on how they can operate. That's going to affect their strategy going forward. That's going to affect their ability to defend Trump effectively. And it creates this dynamic where Trump's own team might be frustrated with him, might be trying to restrain him, might be dealing with court-imposed limitations that directly result from his behavior. When a legal team is dealing with that kind of situation, things tend to fall apart. And here's what's really important to understand. This isn't just about one hearing. This is about a pattern. This is about Trump's repeated courtroom behavior throughout all of these cases. This is about a pattern of losing composure, of being disruptive, of refusing to comply with judicial authority. And once you see that pattern, it becomes harder to defend. It becomes harder to argue that this is just a one-time thing. When someone acts the same way over and over, people start thinking that's just who they are. That's just how they behave. Prosecutors are probably thrilled right now, like they got everything they wanted from this hearing. They got their major ruling. They got Trump removed from the room, and they got video evidence of his behavior. That perfectly supports their narrative about fitness and judgment. That's everything they could have hoped for. For Trump, this is a setback. This is a moment that's going to haunt him politically and legally. This is the kind of thing that affects how people perceive him. This is the kind of thing that shifts narratives, and it all came from his own choice to lose composure in a courtroom. That's the worst part about this for Trump. He did this to himself. His legal team didn't do this. His opponents didn't manufacture this. Trump walked into a courtroom and made the choice to be disruptive, to refuse to comply, to escalate the situation, and now he's dealing with the consequences. So that's where we are. The president got removed from a federal courtroom. His legal team got sanctioned. Prosecutors are riding high. Democrats are getting viral ammunition for their midterm messaging, and Trump's dealing with a new layer of legal problems that he created himself through his own courtroom behavior. This is the kind of moment that defines a presidency. This is the kind of moment that people remember, and this is the kind of moment that's going to affect everything going forward. All right, so that's the story. That's what went down. That's why it matters. And next time we're talking about what happens as these legal battles continue and how Trump is going to navigate the minefield of cases that are still coming his way. So you definitely want to stick around for that.